Welcome to the Infidel, podcast of the damned, the weekly companion show of the Infidel News. Join us as we discuss this week's religious accounts from an atheist perspective. From Timbuktu to Toledo, from Kathmandu to Canada, from Bangalore to Bangladesh. We deplore, you deride. And here are your hosts, Dave and Nicole.
Hello and welcome to show number 18 of the Infidel podcast of the damned. I'm your host, J. David Core, atheist, author, and antiseptic astringent. And with me is my co-host, Nicole Simard. Hello, Nicole.
Hello, and welcome everybody to take number 3.
Take 3, yes. Also joining us today is one of our anchors, the Mudbrooker. Welcome, Muddy.
Welcome. We'll get it right one of these times.
Yeah. Today is Friday the 13th. February in 2015, and we're going to be discussing the upcoming episodes of the Infidel News, which will run beginning Monday, February 16th, 2015. Show notes for all of our podcasts can be found at infidelpodcast.blogspot.com. And as I mentioned, this is our third attempt at getting the show right. We have had 2 technical glitches, so hopefully we get through the show this time and everything's good and copacetic.
Yeah. Let's hope.
Yesterday, we tried to do the show yesterday, which was also a day late. We usually do the show on Wednesday, but we tried to do it yesterday, Darwin Day, high holiday of the atheist community. And Mudbrooker, unfortunately, didn't get paid double time for that, and it doesn't, because that's what he wanted to do. He said, it's a holiday, he should be paid double time, but we didn't get to do it, so the show didn't go through, so no double time for him.
Screwed out of that.
I don't know if you've got the same thing in the U.S., but in Canada, if they call you in to work, they have to guarantee you a minimum of hours, like it's 4 hours.
2 hours.
It's 2 hours over there?
I think it varies state to state. In Ohio, it's 2 hours.
Okay, over here it's 4 hours.
A lot of jobs don't do that. Some union jobs you get like 2 hours of show up pay. If you get called in and rained out if you're working outside right away. But a lot of places they don't do that either. They don't have to, so you don't get it.
Yeah, it depends on what state you're in. The right to work states. There's a thing in Ohio called, or a thing in the United States called right to work, and some states are right to work, and that's like a peacekeeper missile. Right to work. Right to work is their right to fire you and their right to screw you out of pay. And
yeah.
And you can't have a closed shop. You can't be forced to join a union in order to work in a union company. And you don't have to pay dues or all that, but you can still, receive the collectively bargained wage.
Right.
But you don't have to contribute to anything.
Right. That was my brother was a shop steward for a job that he was on one time, and they went on strike. And he was so mad when he got back to work because all the scabs got the benefits from the strike.
Yeah.
They made no sacrifice, but they got all the same benefits when the new contract was signed.
Yeah.
Yeah. But what are you going to do other than start your own business and be your own boss?
Well, I was reading about Intel this week. It seems that a very high number of the employees at a plant, a chip plant, are getting ALS, and it's a very high percentage of employees who get it compared to normal population. And so there's no union, so they can't put the pressure on the company to keep track of that. Mm-hmm. And there is also, the company is not interested in keeping an eye as to, how many people are getting ALS or not.
Right. This is where?
It's in the U.S. It's one of their plants, their chip plants.
Okay. Because the NLRB can still be called in. That's the National Labor Relations Board. They can still call them in, even if you don't have a union. If they're doing things that are putting their employees at risk, and not following certain protocols that the federal government mandates, then you can call in the NLRB.
Yeah, but it could be caused by the chemicals that are used at the plant, and
Yeah, likely is. I've known people that worked at a titanium plant here in town that they've got a higher percentage of certain conditions, and nothing, and they have a union, but they can't prove that it was caused by them. And certain kinds of jobs, like there's all kind, you always see on TV all these commercials for asbestos relief. They haven't used asbestos for years, but there's still people suing because their grandfather had asbestos poisoning, or their grandfather, or their father, or their uncle, or somebody. They keep lumping everything into class action.
Well, asbestos is still being mined in Canada.
Really?
Yeah, it's still being used in some countries in the world.
In Canada, though, that's odd.
Well, that's where one of the biggest mine in the world is.
Yeah, Canada was always a big producer. Canada, the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, there's quite a bit of asbestos mining. And there's a lot of other minerals that are very similar structurally to asbestos that they run into in Minnesota in the iron mines. So even though it's technically not asbestos, it's the same damn thing. Mm-hmm. And you still do get a little bit of asbestos exposure from time to time doing demolition work.
Yeah.
Where you'll have pipes buried in the walls that were insulated with asbestos, and even if they try and remove the asbestos, they only remove it from the stuff that's exposed. The stuff that's buried in the wall, they just leave that. And some lucky guy like me gets to come along and tear down the wall and discover, oh yeah, hey, that's asbestos insulation.
Yeah. Yeah, they're still finding lead paint too.
Oh yeah, that's everywhere.
Oh yeah.
It's pretty much anything painted before 1980 is going to have lead paint on it.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So
the fun of it.
Okay, well, let's go ahead and save the conversation we had yesterday, and we'll bring that up again at the end. But for now, let's go ahead and start with the first story.
Okay, first story it is.
On January 27th, the conservative blog Breitbart published a story entitled Islamic Tribunal Confirmed in Texas. Attorney claims it's voluntary. The article by contributor Bob Price, who refers to himself as Breitbart Texas, focuses on an Islamic nonprofit organization established in the state to arbitrate intrafaith disputes. Price quotes Dr. Taher El-Badawi, a member of the arbitration committee, who explained that one reason participants might avail themselves of the tribunal is to obtain a talik, or Islamic dissolution of marriage. Said El-Badawi, while participation in the tribunal is voluntary, a married couple cannot be considered divorced by the Islamic community unless it is granted by the tribunal. The article then notes that El-Badawi compares the procedure to the Catholic practice of obtaining an annulment, a legally unnecessary procedure, but one which is required for Catholics who wish their divorce to be sanctioned by the Church. This practice is also common among other religious groups. For example, last year, the Infidel reported on the practice of a Jewish divorce known as get. The Breitbart story was then picked up and picked over by the ultra-conservative website westernjournalism.com, who repeated cherry-picked snippets, leaving out critical information and giving the impression that Sharia law was actively superseding state and federal law in the state of Texas. Within hours, the story, based on the story, had been shared thousands of times on Facebook and on Twitter. Later that afternoon, a page debunking the hysteria over Sharia law in Texas appeared on Snopes.com, a site known for discrediting urban legends.
Snopes.com, one of my favorite websites. Anytime anybody posts anything on Facebook that looks even slightly dubious, the first thing I do is I type a couple keywords and the word Snopes into Google, and I find where it was debunked, if it's something that can be debunked. I've had people post stuff about chemtrails on Facebook, and right away, boom, I can show them that they're full of crap. Anything. You just go right to Snopes. Snopes has debunked everything. Those people, they're geniuses.
Well, before Christmas, it was in November, somebody posted something about Muslims supposedly taking, who tried to have a school board in Montreal, stop serving pork products in there and then, according to the story, the mayor of Montreal, put a stop to it and said, no way, if they're going to come here, we're not going to stop serving pork just because in our school because they don't want to eat pork. And so automatically a big red light, just started flashing all over my head because, let's put it this way, I don't know about the U.S., but in Canada, a mayor has no say as to what goes on in the school board.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
so I checked this. Pardon me?
It's that way here too.
So I checked Snope, and obviously, it's got its roots in Belgium. It started off as a Belgian story, and now the version that I saw was on the right-wing website in the U.S. And it's this black right-winger who does speaking engagements all over the place, and he's got his webpage with all his news stuff. And I sent him a text, a message telling him, hey, this is wrong, here's why. And after 3 months, he hadn't turned it off. Mm-hmm. And I said, what's going on here? Aren't you going to remove it? And he says, no. And I said, don't you have, any respect for the truth? He said, yeah, but I have other things to do than more important things than going back in time on my website and deleting stories, like excuses.
Right. But he's probably one of the first ones that jumped on Brian Williams.
Yes, exactly. But yeah.
What's that saying? A lie has made it around the world before the truth puts its shoes on.
Yeah.
Yes.
Something like that.
Yeah.
But back to our story. To me, it's like I've seen all sorts of folks getting upset over that Muslim tribunal.
Yeah.
And the thing is, it's just like the Catholic Church. It's when you go, if you want to be married again a second time in the Catholic Church, your first marriage has to be annulled by the Church. Mm-hmm. It's not something that has any legal implication or anything. It's just something that you can do. Right. So what's the fuss? With the Muslims doing the same thing.
Yeah. Well, the people hear the word Sharia and they think it's a criminal court, and that that they're going to pass their own laws, and there's going to be floggings in the courtyards, and cutting off people's hands for theft, and people burying their wives up to their heads in sand for going outside with their ankles showing. They just they take it to that extreme. That's what they think Sharia law means, because and in some cases it does. If you live in like Syria, but if you live in the United States, you never ever have to worry that something like that can happen. The church law will never supersede state law, and state law will never supersede federal law. There's what do they call that? The supremacy clause? Is that what it is? Yeah.
Yeah, and it's kind of ironic. A lot of the people who get most upset about the idea of Sharia law are actively pushing to get biblical law put into the legal system. Yeah, I mean, they would have little problem with stoning homosexuals to death. But and they do the same thing under Sharia law. But if you call it Sharia law, well, that's a terrible thing. But as long as it's out of the Bible, then it's okay. Not that it makes a whole lot of difference to the poor bastard getting stoned.
Yeah. That's true. That's true. Yeah. But I don't know. Okay. Well, let's go ahead and do the second story.
Okay. Second story it is.
More senseless vandalism of what could be considered religious iconography has taken place at Benavanaw Mountain near Limavady in County Londonderry, Northern Ireland, overlooking Benone Beach, McGilligan, Limavady, and Donegal. This time, a calling card of sorts consisting of a 5-foot-tall Christian cross with the words, "Thou shalt not have false gods before me," was left in place of a steel and fiberglass sculpture of Manannán mac Lir, from which the Isle of Man derives its name, according to one theory. In Manx mythology, Manannán mac Lir is a sea god that protects the area from both invaders and the angry sea itself. The sculpture, estimated at a value of £10,000, is the creation of sculptor John Sutton, also known for his work on the popular Game of Thrones series. It was first created from clay, which was used to make a mold, and then finally a cast of fiberglass and steel so that it would stand up to the harsh weather conditions that sometimes affect the area. It is a part of a 5-piece Limavady sculpture trail that is a tourist attraction for the region. The statue of this mythical god could be seen for miles around, casting his mythical protection over the land. The artist and other locals are mystified why anyone would want to go to all the trouble of removing the extremely heavy work of art, since it was so much appreciated locally and did not represent any true modern religious community, but had great historical significance. All that remains now is the bow of a boat to which the statue was attached. Investigators and the artists say that it will have been very difficult to even cut the statue away from the base, let alone lift it off. A search is underway for any remains of the artwork as well as the perpetrators.
Poor Jenny.
So, Muddy, would you rather do an Eastern, a Middle East story with all sorts of Arabic words, or a story that takes place in Northern Ireland with all sorts of Celtic words?
I'd probably do a little better with the Celtic. Next time around, I get to try my hand at Icelandic. So, but actually, I could probably do pretty good with the Icelandic, considering that this area was settled by mostly Norwegians and Germans, so there's still echoes of the pronunciations and the cadence that comes with Scandinavian languages, the big round vowels and things like that. So I could probably fake it pretty good.
Well, the name like McDermott. Jenny should have been able to read those words. That was at least it wasn't Welsh. It like has vowels.
Oh, that would be something.
Yeah.
So, that, it's like, you guys haven't seen that picture, but you should see, when the trouble that those folks went through to remove that statue. They had to use a torch to because it's made of iron and fiberglass, and it was extremely well, attached. The feet, the feet are part of the rowboat, so they had to cut the feet off, and so you can see where the arc from the now I can't remember the word I used 5 seconds ago. But where the torch was used, you can see exactly where it's been scorched. It's quite a job that they did.
Yeah, and it had to be a team of people too, because there's no way like maybe 2 or 3 guys. It had to be like what would take probably 4 or 5 people minimum to do a job like that. And then and they have to have lookouts and. Yeah. Unless the whole town was actually in on it and they're all lying about being sad that it's gone.
There's a chance I could have started off as a bar bet down at the local pub and just kind of got out of hand from there,
Yeah.
And somehow I got difficulty imagining a bar bet saying, okay, and we'll replace it with a cross, and we'll put that there shall be no other God before me, and
It was
that's a bit...
It it was some pissed off Christians, but you know, and they're probably a minority, and they just took it upon themselves to be assholes, because that's what those kinds of people. I'm not going to say those kinds of Christians. Those kinds of people do, because it's in all kinds of walks of life. There's similar the Muslims that destroyed in the Taliban that destroyed the Buddhist sculptures at Qumran, I think it was called, in the late 90s.
Yes.
Yeah, same kind of thinking.
Yes, was not in Afghanistan.
Yeah, Afghanistan. Where did I say? Yeah.
Yeah, it's so horrible that something like that is gone now.
Yeah.
A part of the world history of world heritage.
Right. At least this statue didn't have any history to it. It was just something they just recently did. It was about history, but it didn't have history. But it had value, and it was probably a good tourist attraction, and now it's gone. So, what are you gonna do? Yeah.
Well, you have to put up a bigger one next time.
Yeah. Now this was Northern Ireland, right? So they would have been.
Yes, it was Northern Ireland.
It would have been Protestants, not Catholics.
Yeah. Well, I don't think too many Catholics are too worried about things like you shall not put any other god before me. It's not something that Catholics get too excited over.
Right.
I think something like that is it's not looked as sacrilege. It's more looked as my mind is not working this week. As some imaginary god, nothing real to it. So it's not taken seriously by Catholics.
Right. If you actually follow the history of the Bible and the way that it was put together, the Jews originally, the ancient Jews, before the time of, say, David and Saul, you can tell that they actually believed in multiple gods. Their God was their God, but he wasn't the God, because even in the beginning, God's talking to other gods.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, depending as to which part of Israel you were from, you had a different version, a different name for God. I read, a book recently. So if you were from the tribe of Israel, you referred to God as Elohim, and if you were from the tribe of Judah, you referred to God as Yahweh. So it was the same God, but two different names.
And now they call him G-D.
Yes. Yes, G-D.
You can't even say God.
Exactly.
You can't write it out. It's ridiculous. But there was something. Talladega Tom, who used to write for us, did a debate with a Christian recently. Did either of you watch that?
Nope.
I tried watching it, and I got about 10 minutes into it, and he was very patient. Talladega Tom was extremely patient with this guy, but he was saying something about the God, where God came from, and all else. And he was just talking complete nonsense, but it was all about what the idea. You have to listen to him say. I can't even really. I couldn't understand what his point was. It was so convoluted. But it was basic. He had basically no understanding of history. He just was making stuff up about God as he understood it, and associating that to Jewish belief. So if you get a chance to listen to it, I suggest that it was bizarre but entertaining in a weird way. You just wanted to reach through the screen and grab the guy and say, "You're not making sense," and Talladega Tom just let him go.
I'm gonna have to check that tonight.
Yeah.
Shall we go on to the third story?
Let's do it.
A Facebook group entitled Justice for Steve and Justice for His Sons has been set up after a British judge ordered a divorced man to take his sons to Roman Catholic Church services. The About section reads in part, "This group has been created to show support for the parent known only as Steve, who has been ordered by the courts to attend religious ceremonies with his children following a divorce hearing. Moreover, this group seeks to protect the rights of the children involved in this judgment to follow their own beliefs without fear of persecution or of having others' beliefs forced upon them." The issuing judge, James Orrell, is himself a Roman Catholic and has faced criticisms before for inserting his own religious beliefs into rulings. As for Steve himself, he is not religious, and his eldest son has also expressed his lack of belief at this time. The father of two states that long ago, when he did attend services, it was at a Unitarian church. The divorced couple has joint custody of the children, and while Steve is required by the court to attend Roman Catholic services with his children, his wife, who actually is a Roman Catholic, has no such requirement placed on her. In an earlier decision involving child custody of another couple, Judge Orrell's decision was later overturned, but Steve had been fighting his case since the order was issued in 2009. The father, who goes by the name There Is No God, Get Over It, on Facebook, says that regardless of the outcome of this case, he would like to keep the group going on general principles of religious freedom so as to protect the rights of others.
There is no God, get over it, a.k.a. Steve.
I can't believe that this court case has, not been settled. Like, he hasn't been able to overturn the judge's decision after almost 6 years now.
Yeah, it's clearly I mean, even in Britain, it's a violation of his rights, and but what we were saying the other day, the story doesn't say whether the wife is fighting him over the decision. So if it may just be, if it's him just fighting it alone, there's absolutely no reason why it should be taking this long. If his wife's putting up a fight, but she didn't ask for the decision, though. It was judge decided on his own.
Well, the thing is, there's very little information, in the source material that we had. So
and after 6 years, I mean, it's got to be getting to the point where the kids are almost adults by now.
Yeah,
I seem to have gotten the impression that they were at least 10, 12, 13 years old when the decision was handed down to begin with. Mm-hmm. They're at least old enough to have some idea, because it said that, the one child didn't believe and didn't want anything to do with it. They're at least old enough to understand what was going on.
Right. But I don't even see how they would enforce. How would they enforce this? Because if he doesn't go to church, right? If he doesn't take his kids to church, who's going to be responsible for checking on it? Is the judge going to check on it? Is the church responsible for saying he wasn't here this week? Who's going to report it? There would be
maybe it's like the AA, or somebody, when somebody, an alcoholic is forced to go to AA with, as part of their sentence. They have a paper that they have to present to somebody at the group, and then it has to be signed. So the guy would have to have it signed by the priest every time he goes to
and that's
church.
That's a weird burden on the priest. That's not something that they do. That's not.
Like I said last time, it seems kind of odd to me that being a British court, which is officially representative of the Queen, who was officially head of the Anglican Church, which is the state religion, even though the judge was Catholic, I don't really see how it would be legal to force somebody to go to anything other than an Anglican church. I could see where if you wanted to force church on somebody, they could force them to go to an Anglican church, but to attend a Catholic church, especially given the history of Anglicans and Catholics, which hasn't been always all that amicable in Britain. It really strikes me as strange on that level.
Yeah. Well, even if the father did agree to take the kids to church, he should be allowed to decide what church. And he was if anything, he was a Unitarian.
Yeah.
Which is basically, make up your own beliefs church.
Well,
No. It's just weird. It was a weird story all the way around. But I like the name for the Facebook page is really bad. It was Justice for Steve and Justice for his sons. Just call it Justice for Steve and his sons. Who named that Facebook group?
some people, who knows? I won't comment about the level of English that some people possess.
Well, that's probably just something that they were typing. I'm sure that when they were making up the name of the group, it was Justice for Steve. Well, his sons too, and Justice for his sons. But
Yeah, that's kind of a pet peeve of mine. You see, some of these small businesses around, rather than being Jones and Sons, it's I just forgot how I was going to phrase it. They phrase it wrong. It's should be Jones and Sons or something like that, but they have it ass backwards, and it just doesn't read wrong. I just brought it up, and now I can't remember how the hell it was phrased last time I saw it.
Jones and son and his other son.
It's like me earlier.
No,
the word I was looking for was superstition.
Oh.
No, I know. I got it now, finally. If it was, Tom's Cars, it would be Tom and Sons Car Lot. But they'll have it Tom's Car Lot and Sons.
And sons, yeah.
Things
He's selling
like
his sons.
that.
You can buy cars and sons.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah. Okay. So anyway, there is no Christian glitches this week from Nicole, but we did want to talk a little bit about what was going on this week in the. It's been affecting the atheist community, and that is this whole situation in Chapel Hill, where a man who is a very vocal atheist shot and killed 3 Muslim students, and a lot of people, Richard Dawkins, Aaron Ra, Mr. Deity, as Nicole pointed out yesterday, Jacqueline Glenn, the Secular Students Alliance, American Atheists, all have come out with statements deploring the actions, and so I just wanted to, how do you feel about that, Nicole? About
I don't agree with having to go and make a statement. As far as I'm concerned, even if it's a hate crime, it doesn't mean that it's a hate crime because he's an atheist. He did not necessarily do it because he's an atheist and he doesn't like Muslims. He could have, if that were the case, then he could have just as easily done it with Christians, and he could have done it a lot easier. They are a lot easier to find.
Yeah, but one thing that I was, and I'm not saying that I'm not putting the blame on anybody here. That's not the point of this. But with Bill Maher and Sam Harris, with that thing that they did on Bill Maher's show, where they got into an argument with Ben Affleck, and basically said that liberals are coddling because of Islamophobia, and that Islam is the motherlode of bad ideas, and a couple of other subtext in the things that they said. The comparison can be made. I'm not making the comparison, but I am saying the comparison can be made to, for example, when Sarah Palin put crosshairs on Gabby Gifford, and then somebody shot Gabby Gifford. And people were criticizing Sarah Palin, saying that her actions were irresponsible, and that fed into a frenzy. So there is an anti-Islamic attitude amongst certain portion of the population, the more libertarian and conservative side, which this guy I would call a libertarian from what I've seen of his position, and he may have actually been of the idea that Muslims in particular are a problem, may have, and wouldn't have gone after Christians the way he went after Muslims.
Well, Muddy, it's your turn. Do you have any idea?
Something you see a lot, especially in internet activism, is your identity is more important as your group identity than any sort of individual. If you label yourself as an atheist or a Muslim or a Christian, you suddenly become responsible for every other person who labels themselves the same way. And it also works the other way. You become demonized for things that the other people have done. You're going to have to excuse me. I got to run for a second here.
Okay.
Yep. Well, the thing is, like, I saw, this afternoon I did a bit of research to see if anything new had come out about it. And one of his neighbors said, anytime that I saw him or saw interaction with him or friends or anyone in the parking lot or myself, he was always angry. He was very angry anytime I saw him. Mm-hmm. And then something else that's kind of weird from, comes from his ex-wife. So I guess he's been married more than once. She said, that his favorite movie was Falling Down, the 1993 Michael Douglas film. Really? About a divorced, unemployed engineer who goes on a shooting rampage. Mm-hmm. And she said it always freaked me out because he was constantly watching the movie and he thought it was hilarious. Mm-hmm. So, she said, he didn't have any compassion at all. So, he seemed to have an inkling towards, a bit of a tendency towards that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So it sounds like what he did had more to do with his being an asshole than his being an atheist. And even his current wife said that it was about the parking dispute. And who kills anybody over a parking dispute? Who shoots
an asshole?
An asshole. That's right. Yeah. But
let's
go ahead.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, Aaron Raw had a video about this this week, and I commented, that there can be, there are all sorts of atheists, like there are all sorts of Christians, there are all sorts of Muslims. There are atheists who are leftists. There are some who are more like on the right side. There are some who are gun nuts. There are some who are pacifists. There's all kinds. So, the fact that he is an atheist may very well have nothing to do with what he did. And let's put it this way. So far, I've got 98 likes. 98 people are saying, yeah, we think like you do. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So...
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing in atheism, as we pointed out yesterday. And as others have pointed out, there's nothing in atheism. There's no tenet in atheism that says to kill anybody. There are tenets in Judaism, and therefore in Christianity, because Christianity is based on the same book. And there's also things in the New Testament too. And then there's things in the Quran. There are definitely things in the Bhagavad Gita. There's nothing in Buddhism. But that doesn't stop Buddhists from being violent for Buddhism, as they are in Myanmar. But there's nothing in atheism that leads somebody to do that. We have Stalin, as a matter of historical record, who was an atheist, made an atheist state, killed millions of people, and Christians always bring him up as an example. But he didn't do what he did because of atheism. He didn't kill anybody because atheism said to kill them. Because it just doesn't, if for one thing, he killed intellectuals. And if atheism would, if anything, say kill the stupid people.
Yes.
Your cat wants out. Anyways.
1 second. There you go, Ben.
But yeah, and as I pointed out yesterday. By the way, the stuff that I was saying earlier about Sam Harris and Bill Maher, that was devil's advocacy. That wasn't really that's not my position. I'm not saying that.
No?
No, they don't have any literal responsibility for it. But people could make that argument, and depending on what this guy's position ends up being, we don't even know what his real motivation or position was. The parents of the students want the thing declared a hate crime and prosecuted as a hate crime, but the police are leaning more toward it being a traffic dispute.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Well,
we'll have to wait and see what happens with that. But even then, I've heard atheists say that we should be calling this terrorism, but it's not terrorism because he wasn't what he went and he killed him and then he went and turned himself in. If he was a terrorist, he would have tried to take out more people or tried. There's no he wasn't part of a movement. There's no cell that he's a part of or anything like that. Why would you call it terrorism?
no, that's totally off base.
Yeah.
That's totally wrong.
But the idea that the atheists owe anybody, an excuse or
Apology.
a mea culpa, or or we deplore, any of that is the same thing with where people on Fox News and channels like that want Muslims to apologize every time there's a terrorist attack. And if we don't feel that they need to do it, we shouldn't do it either. So I think, we need to just quit apologizing right now.
Well, as an ex-Catholic, do you feel the urge to apologize for Catholicism because priests have been diddling little boys?
No, but I actually do think that anybody who is a Catholic should leave the church because of it.
Yeah, but they
don't.
shouldn't apologize for the church.
No, they shouldn't apologize for the church. No. But,
So why should should atheists apologize for what that atheist did? It doesn't make sense.
Right. Yeah, just nonsense. And as I was mentioning yesterday, there's kind of an ironic thing here in my case with this because I have a new novel coming out in March, and the novel is a part of my mystery novel series. It was written a couple years ago. You can actually look back on my channel and see when I was writing it. I did it for a part of NaNoWriMo like 3 years ago, 2 or 3 years ago. So the videos when I was writing it are actually there already. So this isn't something I just wrote, but it's about an atheist detective investigating an atheist serial killer who is killing people of different religious groups because he's an atheist and wants them to understand that their church is responsible for atrocities throughout the years. So he's killing them according to how they martyred or sacrificed throughout the years. So, for example, he kills a Catholic bishop by hanging him upside down, crucifying him upside down, like St. Peter. Mm-hmm. And he burns a Hellenist pagan in a Ford Taurus to represent the brazen bull. So it's
I never liked the Taurus. I always thought it was an ugly car. So sure, burn one up. It makes I'm happy with it.
Well, the Ford Taurus is the most attractive car in the market. He also he kills a Celtic pagan by staking them to the ground outside a cranberry farm, and when they flood it, when they bog it, that's a representative of a bog person. So it goes on, on through history like that. But the detective in the story is concerned that people are going to blame atheism for this guy's actions. So it's kind of ironic that I have that book coming out in March when it's something like that has never happened in the history of atheism, really, but it just did in a sort of a corollary. I thought that was kind of odd. But.
Well, I was thinking for a second I was going to ask you if you were going to have in your book a Greek attached to the side of a mountain with an eagle that would come and feed.
Well, that's mythology. This is mine's only concerned with actual actual events. I do have a modern day Aztec boy killed on the steps of the Philadelphia Museum, the Rocky Steps. Because that's how they used to kill. They used to sacrifice. They used to sacrifice children on the steps of their pyramids in South America. So,
yep.
So it's all kind of parallels that I use.
I prefer the eagle.
Yeah, that would make. If I could have worked that in, I would have, but it didn't really seem to make sense. But other thing that I wanted to mention in regard to this story is that there's a fundraiser for the parents, for the family of these victims, we'll post a link in the on the website on our infidelpodcast.blogspot.com on the show notes. But the Foundation Beyond Belief is a fundraiser for the Chapel Hill shooting. So if you want to donate to that, you'll be able to find the link there and in the underbar on the video when Nicole posts that.
Okay.
Okay. Muddy's still out of the way there, but it looks like we're pretty much done with everything.
Yep.
I do want to take a second to pimp something. It's almost over, but you can get the download file if you have the Kindle or the Kindle app of my book, the Return of the Dragon, which is a fantasy graphic novel. It's an illustrated, like a comic, basically a comic book. It's a story of King Arthur. If he didn't die at Camlan and is going to come back and take over, how's he going to do that? Well, obviously he's a vampire. So that's what that's what that is. So if you want to download a free copy of that, you have through Valentine's Day to do that. Oh, Muddy's back.
Did I miss the end of the Did I miss the end of the show?
You missed.
We are at the end.
We're about to. That's okay. You had things to do. That's okay. That's understandable. Have family obligations. Anyway, so if nobody has anything else to add.
Well, you didn't think the third iteration of this show would go flawlessly, did you?
Okay, well, anyway, that's all for today. Please make sure that you subscribe to the Atheism TV channel. There you can watch the Infidel News for the Damned, where our talented team of writers and anchors presents these and other stories not normally covered in the media. In the coming week, the Infidel will rerun today's stories and many more fascinating ones. You'll find Atheism TV at youtube.com/atheismtv. The Infidel Podcast of the Damned is a Nicole SD production. Nicole and I would like to recognize and say thank you to Truth Search, who did the voiceover used in our intro and gave us permission to use music from his song Lied To as our opening theme. We'd also like to thank Muddy for coming back at the end there and for being with us in the early part of the show, for participating in today's podcast. Nicole's channel is Nicole SD and can be found at youtube.com/NICOLSD. I'm Gamut Man on YouTube, at Gamut Man on Twitter, and my blog and information on my books, including my nonfiction title, Believe It, You Know an Atheist, as well as my mystery novels featuring the atheist detective Lupa Schwartz, can be accessed at tinyurl.com/lupalanding. While there, you can sign up to receive my newsletter. Signing up also entitles you to choose one free ebook title from my collection of 99 set novellas. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next week.
I know.
Bye.